Hello everyone, Allie here. Welcome back to the channel. So the first open of season 2 of Parallel Esports just transpired this past weekend, and I thought it would be a nice content idea to go over the deck lists and just some things that we saw throughout the tournament for those of you that are interested in the competitive scene or just want to be up to date with changes to the competitive meta. So let's get started. So to start out, a massive congratulations to Tony for taking the win in the tournament. He beat Exie in the finals with Neve, Juggernaut Workshop, Catherine, and Scipius, and we'll go over his deck lists in just a moment here. But just some overview of the tournament. It actually was a really fantastic tournament. We had some guest casters. We had Lambie, Flux, and D-Money as guest stars joining your normal casters on the cast. That was a ton of fun. But we also saw a lot more variance in the deck list that we are kind of used to seeing, at least in the last couple months in the championship. So Brand was actually incredibly popular. Most people brought Brand as their Shroud pick instead of Neve. There were 9 Brands and 6 Neves and 1 New Dawn. Malston, let's go. Kathy was still the most popular Markolian pick, but there were 5 people who brought ADHQ, so 10, Kathy's still queen, but ADHQ it's hanging in there. Most everyone that brought Cathari brought Scipius, of course, except for 3 people. Perp, Sneakot, and I'm Cute brought Aetio, and we saw Perp get a pretty epic win with Aetio, and there was some interesting deck building with the Enraged Beast. Sneakot and I'm Cute both put Enraged Beast in their Aetio deck to sort of combo with the update to Meritus because she now costs 3 instead of 4, so that was fascinating. Master Poisoner was deemed the MVP of the tournament, and Solitary Confinement was in a lot of decks as a tech choice, and these might be because of the change to no snitching in the most recent patch. Can't target big units with no snitching anymore, so something like Master Poisoner actually swung, I think, a lot of games, and that's why the casters, we kind of agreed that it was the MVP of the tournament, and it's also getting changed. We don't know exactly when, but the card is getting a rework to not be able to give everything poison now it's going to just be targeting 1 unit with poison in addition to itself, so that will be a change there. But to start out, let's go over Tony's deck list as he was the winner and see what he brought. All right, so to start out with Tony's deck list here, you can see the final score in that last series against Exie was 3-1, and we can take a look at his Juggernaut Workshop list to begin with. I'm going to just point out some differences, or not differences, but key things, because a lot of these lists are the meat is going to be similar to what everybody is running or what you're used to seeing, and we're just going to point out some of the more interesting talking points. So the first one is the 3 unstable shield generators. These actually did a decent amount of work for him, and I really like it in Workshop because I feel 4 is when you can get down Grawl or also the Workshop's assembly mechanic here, and that's when your tempo really starts to swing. I feel is in that moment. So having the unstable shield generators to be able to kind of clean up a little bit of the early aggression in the first couple turns allows the Workshop to sort of get to turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 when the M-Tab and Grawl and stuff like that can come into play. He also opts for 2 repeater cannons, combos well with the Ruthless Juggernaut. Love to see that as well. And one thing that Tony really did was target Scipius. So he had 3 copies of Saboteur in this list, and he also had a ton of other saboteurs in his other lists as well, and so he let the Scipius go through and was able to hit those high density replicators with saboteurs. Okay, moving on to his Kathy list. Now there were basically 3 different variations of Kathy, and I'll talk about a little bit about them later as well, but essentially there was what I would consider the standard Kathy list, which is what Tony brought. Nothing like too crazy, just like tried and true. And that is what ultimately led him to victory. But then there's like the Kathy list that goes a little bit heavier on the 2-drops, like brings in a Terrangator or second wave soldier. And then one that has a lot of like end game burn with crack shot and logistics mastery and that type of stuff. So those were kind of like the 3 categories. And this to me is like the most basic standard of the Kathys. And it worked well for him. So, but you can see there the 2 saboteurs, he had it in here as well. He even put 2 master poisoners, so he went a little bit heavy on the tech choices for the Kathy list, but still Lord Harf's the only 2-drop in there, even with the rallying cry. And then pretty much, it's just a staple now to run the Bloodhound transports. And, he does have the glaive in there. Maybe not everybody puts glaive to sort of definitely get the Bloodhounds for the Machinist turn 1. But in general, this is like tried and true, solid Kathy list. Okay, now on to Asclepius list, which I've realized now that I've been talking about the cards and hovering them, but the card does not pop up. So we are going to go over to Parallel Stats and copy the code in so you guys can actually see the card that I'm discussing. But for Asclepius list, Radiant Legion, which of course can't see, but the 5 cost that summons the 1/1 iterants when you multi-charge seems to be a pretty popular inclusion now for Asclepius. He's opting for just 1 in this list. I've seen more here and there. He had 1 Drusian Exorator, FML, for the buff. No kill box or anything else, but relying on that 1 Exorator and the high density replicators for the buff. You can see here he was, again, pretty committed to the like tech cards, 2 poisoners, 2 saboteur plan, like with his other deck list here. Meritus, of course, now got the buff, so she's in there, works really well with the Domina effect, getting the battle ready on her. And then everything else looks pretty normal, except for the 3 convergent recruiters seems to be the pick now, like the Centaurus, the 4 cost that summons the 1/1, that's been completely axed after some changes. So now people are opting for the 3 convergent recruiters. All right, now on to his last deck, which was Neve. And man, I will say the Neve deck lists and the brand too, there are little changes here and there, but for the most part, most people's lists look very similar. So there's not too much to say about it, but you can see here prioritizing 2 collateral damages. Again, Tony's plan was target the Sippy, have an answer with the Relic Destruction. I mean, and Neve is going to be in a good spot against the Scipius anyway, but still decided to throw those collateral damages in there. But there's not too much else to say in terms of like crazy deck choices with the Neve, but it carried him to victory despite Brand being the more popular choice amongst the players. One more thing to say is that going over Tony's matchups here, it looks like his band choice was Shroud every time, Brand and Neve. So targeted the Scipius, banned the Shroud, and it carried him to victory. All right, now we'll just go into some individual deck choices, like in the little bit of variance between them, starting with Brand. Let's take a look at Pheno's Brand, because he's quite a great Brand player. It looks like it was banned both here. So it seems that the status quo for the Brand decks here is that at least 2 Trusty Belts. I believe Perp had 3 Trusty Belts. A lot of people included Paid Off as a tech choice, and it looks like most people are moving towards 1 Triumph of the Lost, and I believe Pheno here doesn't even have a copy at all. Just 1 or none is what I saw mostly from the Brand players. Pheno, I trust you, but only 2 demolecularizes is a no from me, dog. I am always a 3 demo girl, and most other people, like Xe, Perp, a lot of people brought 3, but, you know, it's a choice. It's fine. I respect it somewhat, but I'm a personal 3 demo girl. 2 unseated allies, also consistent amongst everyone, and Xe had a Sacred Siphoner, which was a fine inclusion as well. I think one other person might have had a Siphoner in there. But for the most part, you know, Salvation is in everybody's lists, and the rest is pretty similar. And on the subject of Neve, there's really not much to discuss with Neve. Almost everyone's lists are so the same. So this is very fat cats, but if you want to, I'll link the codes to all of these in the description of this video, but there's not much to discuss with Neve there. All right, now moving on to Nehemiah. We'll take a look at Very Fat Cat's list to discuss Nehemiah here because I liked it. Something consistent to note is that pretty much everyone is hard running Terra now. That was not always the case when it came to that decision, but it seems now, you guys can't always see, sorry. The 7-drop is being hard run in it, not just relying on the random 50-50 from the Terra Glider on 7. With the charge, everyone seems to be actually running her now. Another thing that really goes along with the Terra is that Altar of Gaia is like very back in a staple now. Whether it's 3 copies Fat Cat has or 2, everyone seems to be running the Altar. Another thing that we saw a lot this tournament was Miasmancer in a lot of these Earthen lists. Dual Note, Zarathustra had 2 Miasmancers, so that was a very popular choice to help, combat some stuff in certain matchups. But yeah, Miasmancer made a bit of a comeback in Earthen. Okay, now let's move on to the Catherine, which I discussed a little bit earlier, sort of the 3 categories that we sort of saw for the Cathy list. One, the standard, which was Tony's, which we already discussed earlier, so we don't really need to get too into it. But then the other 2 categories was the one that went a little bit heavier on the end game burn, and my personal favorite list was Perps. So let's take a look at that. And I believe it is this one here that is Perps list. So the idea was to run things like the Logistics Mastery, okay, increasing the damage, non-combat damage, so the damage of effects, and playing 3 copies of Crackshot, a couple copies of Catherine's Expertise, and even throwing in a Smuggled Supplies in there. Okay, which allows you to play revealed cards from your bank as though they were in your hand. So late game, you can bank things like the crack shots and stuff like that because they're not that useful on their own. And then when you've got the Logistics Mastery out, you can fire away, fire the missiles, and do a lot of end game burn, because what's kind of happening is that Catherine is sort of getting into a spot where she's running out of push in the late game. So having these extra burn tactics can kind of help get you there. And so Perp also did decide to include 2 copies of Second Wave Soldier, because basically right now, if you're going with like the standard list, is that the only 2-drop to get pulled from Catherine's Rallying Cry is Lord Harf. And so where the heck is the Rallying Cry?
Oh my god.
Perp doesn't run Rallying Cry. Wow. Live on air. We've figured that out. That's pretty interesting. Okay, Perp just straight up doesn't like the Rallying Cry. I mean, I kind of get it, because you're just running like the 1-2 Lord Harf, but I don't know, it seems to be pretty consistent in like most Cathy lists. So that's a Perp special right there. But I was going to go on to the next category, which is going heavier into juicing the Rallying Cry. Yeah, now let's go look at BlizzCon Jan's Catherine list here, because his is the one that goes a little bit deeper into juicing up the Rallying Cry. So you've got 3 copies of the Alvaro Interrogator, right? And then also the Lord Harf as well. But he also seems to go a bit heavier into the burn plan, because he's got the Logistics Mastery, a Determined Assault, and a Catherine's Expertise. So this one's actually like a little bit of a hybrid of like having more for the Rallying Cry and also some extra burn push, but not to the level of like adding in crack shots. And then you have Infernix, who went the route of 3 interrogators as well, but also 2 second wave soldiers here for more good targets for the Rallying Cry, and not going for too heavy on the burn plan. Still decides to put 1 Vindicator in there despite its nerf to 3 attack instead of 4 as well. All right, so hopefully that gives you like a little bit of the breakdown and choices for the Cathy. Full standard like Tony, juice the Rallying Cry with more 2-drops, or go heavy on the burn with Logistics Mastery, or combine the 2, I suppose, which some people did. Here's a quick look at I'm Cute's Universal Workshop. He's the only one that brought it, and still made it to top 16, but didn't take it too far. It has the new one of relic from the Battle Pass Mimic protocol, but it looks pretty similar to most other things that we've seen in the past when it comes to Uni, of course, the Desmond and the girls. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Juggernaut workshop list because we discussed Tony's in the beginning, and they're all very similar. A few different choices here and there. I don't think Tony had personal SMR, but repeater cannon seems to be a nice choice. Tony had 2, Perp has 1 here. The rest, very similar. They're running just like one upcycled technology copy, and then, you're going in on the Sestmir and the Tetsu, the AOPs, the Grolls. So pretty similar across the board. Now, my personal favorite moments of the tournament was the Aetio gameplay. So we'll start out with Perp's Aetio list here. And that was a joy to see because we don't always get to see Aetio. And we had 3 in the top 16 and actually got to watch and cast it on the broadcast. So, yes, and also Perp won with Aetio in a pretty epic game against a Catherine, too. Like, you don't see that very often. It was sweet. It was, he got to land a subjugate and it actually lived for the turn. And then he popped off with the Radiant Legion, the 5 cost that summons the 1/1, so you can imagine with the subjugate on the board, it went crazy, burned all the cards. It was pretty sweet. But yeah, I really love Perp's list here of Aetio. It was kind of awesome to see with the allocated provisions in there, which was pretty cool. Of course, that combos with the Radiant Legion for the multi-charge here. Yes, Magna got nerfed, rip. She only does 3 damage consistently, not just equal to her attack anymore. But Meritus got buffed, Magna got nerfed. I guess it sort of all balances out. But then Sneakot, some other Sneakot and I'm Cute, I believe, are the 2 other people that brought Aetio. And both of them put in Enraged Beast in the list, the 7 cost 10/10 that is in there for the stats, right? Because with Meritus, you can either pick the stats of a unit and also the abilities of the unit and combine. So you want to be picking the stats for Meritus, and she winds up being a 3 cost 11/11. And then you can pick the ability of Domina, to get the battle ready amongst some other options there, but that would probably be ideal. And so there were some cool games on stream, actually getting to see Meritus become an 11/11. Sneakout also has a Odious in there. That's also one of my old favorite cards. And so, no, Aetio didn't win the tournament, but we certainly got to see some fun gameplay, and I will be taking Aetio to ladder to see if I can have some fun with it. And we'll do a little quick shout out to Malston for bringing Shoshana. Love to see it. And also New Dawn. New Dawn's in a little bit of a rough spot for the most part. Brand and Neve, definitely the more popular choice. But anyway, y'all, I hope that was a nice little summary of the first open that just transpired. That was actually a $10,000 open. Normally, they're not going to be that big of a prize pool. They'll be much smaller, but because it was the first, it was a special one. But the minors will still be $10K prize pool, the major $75,000 prize pool, and then ultimately $500K for that championship at the start of next year. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon for Parallel Prime League. So if you enjoyed this little breakdown of the tournament and what happened, and you want to see more of this type of content for future tournaments for me, please let me know. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you in the next one.